Generally, I have two separate processes when it comes to designing the products that I make. Um, when it comes to the custom tables, it's a bit of a longer process because that involves me talking to the customer, either chatting or sitting down with them, and trying to find out exactly what it is that they want in the table that they're ordering. This makes it easier for me to be able to see um, how long it's going to take, um, what I'm able to do, depending on the tools that I have, and if something that the customer wants is obtainable. From there, I will sit down and either I'll sit down with a notepad or a sketchbook and start sketching out a little design on what the customer wants. Sometimes I'm doing this while we're talking, and other times I'll be in a program called SketchUp or Blender, and I'll be modeling the programs or modeling the items there in those programs. Um, Once the design is done, um, one of the new things that I've started doing is I've been because it's always been up until now it's always been um, I've had artistic freedom. So I do have examples in my Etsy shop of what I've already made. Excuse me, and my customers so far have been giving me um, full creative um, freedom to make their table, and um, but I've decided recently that I think for me it would be better if I at least came up with made their design, sent it to them, so that they can let me know if there's anything that they would like to change. Because once they get the product, it's too late to change something. So after I finish with the design, as soon as the design is okayed, then I go ahead and um, make a what we call a cut list for so that I know exactly what I need to buy from what lumber I need to buy when I go to the big box store. At this time as well, while I'm doing this, as soon as I get the okay, I also order anything that I need to order that goes along with the tables as well. For example, cup holders. They're made out of metal. I'm not a metal worker yet, so I do have to order those from somewhere else in order to put those in the table for my customers. Now, as soon as I get back from my lumber runs, and sometimes it does take me a couple of days. Um, I think it's the longest it's taken for me to be able to do a lumber run after the customer has made the purchase has been a week. Um, this is without any other, um, without anything coming up in the in between, like family emergencies or anything. So it would take a week because I don't personally have a truck yet. So I have to ask other people to um, help me run this errand. So we do that. Again, it takes up to a week for that to happen. And then I pick up all the materials that I need. And as soon as I have everything in my possession, I go ahead and start building. The reason why I wait until I have everything is, for example, if I order cup holders from one supplier and they don't have them anymore, or after my order they tell me, well, um, we ran out or whatever, this I need to go ahead and mark this down as a delay for that project and order it from somewhere else. Um, the second reason why I do it this way is because if you've seen any of my previous videos, my workshop is pretty small. So, if anything, I have enough room, depending on the stage that I'm in. If it's like, say, making cutlass out of the lumber that I picked up, I can work on um, up to 4 tables a day for that. But once it gets to a certain point in the building of a table, the table's taking up a lot of space, and I can't work on other tables. So I want to be able to, once I get to that stage, I want to be able to complete that table, get it out of the way, so that I can work on the next one or finish up the next one. Um, this has happened a couple of times this year, um, and I've been working on the process every once in a while. But the best thing that has worked has been, um, put a project on hold until all materials are here, then work on it. So this way, I don't have to um, put other projects on hold when they're completely here, when everything's here for that project. Um, yeah, and then as soon as I finish the build, I send it off. Now, when it comes to smaller items, like dice trays, dice cups, things like that, um, these are things that just they come off the cuff, and I come up with an idea. I write down the idea, and when I get a chance, I go ahead and sketch it out. Once I sketch it out, get in roundabouts of what I want the item to look like, then I go into Google and I search the internet to see if there's anything that it looks exactly like what I'm making. If I can only find things that are similar, then I go ahead and I go into SketchUp again, and I design the the item so that I can know exactly what type of how much of materials I'm going to be using up for the prototype. Now, the prototype is what you make before you make your prototype. It's not the prototype is not something that actually is functional. Um, Kind of, sort of. The when it comes to, like, say, dice trays, it is functional, but it's not in a material that would last. Um, so I go ahead with the prototype and I look to make sure the size is okay. As soon as I get that down, if I already know what materials I'm going to be making the product out of, I go ahead and get those materials, or some of those materials, and then I make a prototype. The prototype is there to basically tell me if using that material was a wise decision. Is it harder to cut? Is it harder to handle? Is it brittle? Things like that. I need to know all of this information before I make the final product, because when I come to the final product, I don't want that item to take, either be subpar or take an extreme long amount of time to create. Once I get the prototype done, that's when I go ahead and make one more, and one more test build, and in that part, I'm testing to see how long it's going to take. Now, this part um, coincides with pricing. If it takes me 5 hours to make something, and this is not including personalization, um, if it takes me 5 hours to make something, then I scrap the project altogether, or I put it to the side and I'll go revisit that design when I have different, either different materials or different tools to work with to see if that at that time will make the pricing go down for that item. Um, After that, I put it up in my Etsy shop, and then I do a little advertising in the interwebs about that product.